all we say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
Are Hispanic people white? Well, that depends on who you're talking to. There's a very confusing statistic about the percentage of white people in America thanks to a clause in the US Census that refers to white non-Hispanic. Now, if you're white with European ancestry, Asian with Asian ancestry, or black with African ancestry, this may not be something you've ever even thought about. Let's look at the 2010 census. If you check the box that simply says white, this registers you as white non-Hispanic, which makes up 62% of the population. But together, white Hispanics and Latinos are 77% of the population. Now, if that seems like a quick way to boost the number of white people living in this country, that's because it kind of is. And if that also seems really confusing, that's because it is. So if you ever hear anyone say, "This is America and 77% of it is white," whether they know it or not, they are in fact including a very large number of people who identify as Hispanic or Latino. If you look at the 2010 census application again, the difficulty is that Hispanic is not considered a race. The census asks you to choose your Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, then choose your race between the 6 categories offered. Not only is this a hell of a shock when you consider that over 55 million US citizens are Hispanic, but I guess the some other race category is supposed to be a passive-aggressive catch-all for their beautifully diverse culture? And even that option doesn't really work. According to the US Census Bureau, most people who mark some other race are often counted as white. So if Hispanic isn't a race, then what is it? Well, before we get to that, we actually have to settle another important thing. What's the difference between Hispanic and Latino? So I'm gonna enlist some help from my friend, Kat Lasso.
Thanks for having me, Francesca. So it may get a little confusing if this is your first time hearing this, so I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. Hispanic refers to people of Spanish-speaking origin. It means you have a family history in a Spanish-speaking country. This means you have origins in these countries, including Spain. But notice how Brazil isn't included on the map? Well, that's because they don't primarily speak Spanish. They speak Portuguese. Which brings us to Latino, or Latinx if you want to be gender inclusive, which you should be. Latinx refers to having origins in Latin America, which is basically the countries in North and South America that are geographically south of the United States, including most of the Caribbean. And unlike Hispanic, Latinx excludes much of Latin America's colonizer, Spain. So, one more time, Hispanic refers to language and Latinx focuses on geographic location. But whichever term you use, neither of them actually refer to racial identity. Just like America, Latin America has a long and complex history that intersects between native people, European colonization, African slavery, and global immigration patterns. Which is why there are white Latinos, native Latinos, black Latinos, Asian Latinos, and every kind of mixture that you can think of. Does that help?
Yeah, that does help. But I think part of the problem we're dealing with here is the broader confusion between ethnicity and race. As we've covered, race is not biologically real. It's basically an ever-shifting categorization that sometimes includes ethnicity and sometimes doesn't. But when it comes to ethnicity, there are legitimate differences between groups of people that aren't based on external characteristics. And yes, ethnicity can get fuzzy, but there are cultural practices you can associate with it, like language, cultural values, and traditions. Which is why if an Argentinian couple adopts a baby from China, that baby will most likely grow up speaking Spanish and rooting for Lionel Messi. The simple answer? Race doesn't exist, but ethnicity does.
Exactly. The reason this gets so confusing when we're talking about Latinx in America is that there's a broad ethnic Latinx identity that has a complex history with lots of different racial groups living together. Latinx isn't a race, but we're definitely racialized as a people. Which is confusing, and I'm the one who said it. The US and Latin American media has done a great job at constructing an image of what Latinx look like, and that image is rarely black or fully indigenous, for example. We, like the rest of the world, have internalized these messages of white supremacy through the media and through our education. So it's no wonder that when Latinx here in the US are confronted with deciding their race based on the census in a predominantly black and white binary society, many of us default to white. I personally identify as a mixed race Latina with indigenous ancestry, but that's just me. There are a multitude of ways that Latinx choose to identify racially, but it's up to us to unlearn much of what we've been taught about race and demand better and more accurate forms of representation.
Damn, There has to be a better way to talk about this. Well, there is a better way. The census is planning to make changes in 2020 in one huge way. They're going to stop using the word race altogether. Hispanic, Latino, and Spanish origin will be a category like everything else, with no qualifiers. That means people will now check the categories that best describe them. This will not only give us a better idea of how many people identify as Hispanic or Latino, but could also give us a better idea of multiracial and multi-ethnic numbers. So to return to the original question, are Hispanic or Latino people white? Well, some are and some aren't. But to quote the 2013 Census Bureau report, race and ethnicity are not quantifiable values. Rather, identity is a complex mix of one's family and social environment, historical or socio-political constructs, personal experience, context, and many other immeasurable factors. Surprisingly woke coming from the census. Special thanks to my friend Kat Lasso. Tell us where we can find you online.
You can check out my work at Me Too or my personal channel, The Cat's Meow.
We'll put links in the description box. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Decoded.
You've seen that we're the only show that does DNA testing. I mean,
it's very exciting.
Other than Maury Povich, the only nighttime.
And that's like baby daddy stuff.
That's baby daddy. No, this
Yeah.
is, we already know baby daddy. And so a couple of weeks ago, Larry David found out that he was 37% Native American. Right? Did you see that?
I did see that.
Okay, now you submitted a swab of your cheeks, and so did your dad, to make sure that it was accurate.
Yeah, because they say that having a male swab is better, right?
So we sent both the samples to the DNA Diagnostic Center in Cincinnati. The test results can be broken down into 4 ancestral groups. One is European, which is white.
Right.
Oh my God. One is East Asian, which is Asian, or as Latinos say, chinito. One is Sub-Saharan African, which is black, and one is Native American. Okay? All right,
Fully.
so this is the moment we've all been waiting for.
But we'll see.
I have the results right here. Listen, Oprah thought she was more Native American, and she turned out not to be. So what do you think that you are?
Probably more Native American.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's find out. Robin? Here we go. Jessica Alba, you are 0% East Asian.
So now,
You are 0% Sub-Saharan African. You are 13% Indigenous American. And you are 87% European.
really? Wow.
So Farrah, there you go.
Wow, that's crazy.
Jessica Alba, you are whiter than Larry David.
But does Spain count? Because Alba comes from Spain. Like our last name.
We will give you the results, all the details, all the
okay.
paperwork.
But I mean, is Spain, oh my God, or is Spain?
No, I don't think Spain's considered. Oh my God!
All right.
Maybe your dad was traveling through the Southwest and saw Albuquerque and thought Alba. I'll give you all the results.
I can't believe this. This is crazy, by the way.
You are more Buffy the Vampire Slayer than you are Dark Angel.
Hey! Hey!
No, come on. You'll always be a dark angel to me. You know that.
Yes.
If you're on Twitter, go to @JessicaAlba and follow Jessica like I did. But this time I'm going to start following the real Jessica Alba.
Yeah.
And sign up to follow me too. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time, Farrah Alba.
No.
Farrah Dawn Alba.
Hello. Jan here. Many Native Americans get offended when they get confused for a Mexican. But are Mexicans also Native American? After all, they do live in the Americas, and many are native to America. Today, there's about 500,000 speakers of a Native American language in the US, of which almost half of them are Navajo speakers. Mexico, on the other hand, has 8 million speakers of a native language. But to be considered indigenous in Mexico, you must maintain a strong community link, be fluent in your language, and you must look native. Even then, you will never have a birth certificate that recognizes you as native. Kind of harsh, right? So there are natives in Mexico, but what about everyone else? First of all, it's important to establish that Mexican isn't an ethnicity in the sense Mexico is a country just like the United States. That means it has people of different backgrounds, although the government likes to assimilate everyone. For example, Diego Rivera had Jewish ancestry. Frida Kahlo only had native ancestry from part of her mother's side. Carlos Slim, the richest man in Mexico and one of the richest in the world, is of Lebanese descent. About 10% of Mexico's population is white, recent immigrants from Europe or descendants of colonizers. Another social group are called mestizos in Mexico. They're the mainstream, the ones most people in the US will call Mexican. These are people who are part native and part European. Interestingly enough, it often varies what part of Mexico one is from. A mestizo in southern or central Mexico may be overwhelmingly Native American, but a mestizo from northern Mexico may have much less. This is even more interesting when you consider that Native Americans in the southwestern US have made more contact with the more European northerners, and may perceive the rest of Mexicans differently because of this. According to the National Geographic Genome Study, the average mestizo in Los Angeles is over 34% native. Further research shows that it is much higher in certain states of Mexico. This chart highlights the native ancestry in the mestizo population here. Curiously enough, the minimum blood quantum to be Native American in the US is usually about 1/4 native, although it varies by tribe. Using the 25% rule, 80% of Mexicans should be considered Native American, if we were to keep the same standards as the US does. So why don't we keep the same standards? It could be a policy of divide and conquer. For one, if Mexicans were recognized for their heritage, the Native American population would rise much higher in the US, and that would make assimilation efforts much more difficult. And who knows what could happen if Mexican natives worked together with US natives. Also, Mexican native governments don't have a history of making treaties with the US government, which means they don't qualify as natives on paper. Of course, you can thank the Mexican government for dismantling almost all forms of autonomy and election of native governments, but that's a story for later.
One word story. Can I get a word, just a suggestion of any word?
Horticulture.
Horticulture? How about one that they would know? What's
Pizza!
pizza?
That was easy.
Take your suggestion for one word story. Once. A pond. Big voices.
A time.
Oh, there.
Was
A. Pizza. O.
blank to
Dance.
and play with his
Piano.
Yay!
Okay, Kenyatta, who's next?
Who's next?
Yes.
Jeannie.
Oh,
Me? Me?
Okay, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Your DNA results came back 87% Asian. 83% of that was Asia East, but you had 13% that was Pacific Islander. which is 13% Polynesian. Polynesian, if you look at.
No, I've never known that. Wait, there's a little PI in me, like.
Yes, there's a little PI
You
in you.
guys, I always wondered where there was like a weird little side of some swag that I'm not sure where it came from.
Now you know.
Really? Wait, where would that come from? I know up to my great-grandfathers and grandmothers, and there's no Pacific Islander there, so how far back?
So when you think of DNA, it goes back many, many generations. Could be like 7 or 8 generations back.
Wow.
There are not a lot of Asian Americans that dig into their family history. But I think it's so important because one of the things that you have that you didn't have or don't have with the West African is you have an ancestral home that is in one spot. That 87%.
Wow. Okay, so am I related to like Bruce Lee or anything like that? Like I'm serious. Like, do we have? Is there any like imperial dynasty or anything like that?
Well, to find that out, it's going to take a little bit more than DNA.
Okay.
A little bit longer research, more time. You'd have to find out if you have any cousins that match you or anything like that.
Okay.
But in doing the research, I did not find Bruce Lee. I'm sorry.
Darn it. So fly. Okay, who's next?
All right, Adrian.
My palms are so sweaty right now. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So your DNA results came back 28% Native American.
Whoa!
That's cool.
I did not expect that.
I'm not done yet, though.
How?
57% European. 57%.
I'm white?
Wait. Let her finish. Wait. We still have other regions to get to. We still have other regions.
There's more percent.
There's more percent.
Keep
There's
going.
more percent.
Keep going.
So there's 36% Iberian Peninsula. 36% Spanish thing.
Okay.
We have from the same.
Yeah, that's
Girl,
it.
we're
There you go.
European and
cousins.
we all
Okay.
They
You have
said we look
7%.
alike in some of our pictures.
Yes.
7% Italian / Greek. Oh, wait.
What?
7% Irish.
Oh,
What?
everything.
5% Western European.
Wait, you're saying a lot of white stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm not done.
I'm so confused right now.
Wait, I'm not done yet because I got
Okay.
more for you. West Asia, you're 8% Middle East.
So pretty much the Latinos get around. I'm convinced. What is going on here? We are open arms.
Open arms.
What? Am I anything else?
I got one more for you.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
You are 7% African.
Week. She's been walking around like, I know I'm black, y'all. I know I'm black. I feel it. I got it in me. It's here.
They were gonna tell me I was black.
I knew it.
Asian in you too. Yo, but
You like a buffet of a person. You guys.
Oh my God, this is trippy.
I got it.
Look at that coverage.
Okay, wait. Oh my God.
You look like a cell phone coverage.
Oh my God.
Goodness.
Yo, oh my God. I'm so confused.
You need to talk to your parents,
Okay,
girl.
am I as white as Tamara is?
Yep.
You can't pick on me anymore, Adrian.